Good evening, everyone. Let's begin by getting a clear understanding of what the subconscious mind really is. Many people imagine it as some mysterious part of the mind hidden away from everyday awareness. But the truth is much simpler. Your subconscious mind is not separate from you, it is a deep and powerful part of who you are. It holds your memories, your learned experiences, your beliefs, your patterns, and even abilities you have not fully discovered yet. Think of your conscious mind as the small part of an iceberg visible above the surface. It represents what you notice in this exact moment: your thoughts, your surroundings, your emotions, and whatever currently has your attention. But beneath that surface is a much larger world. That hidden portion represents the subconscious, quietly influencing your choices, your habits, your reactions, and the way you interpret the world around you. And this is where things become interesting. You may wonder, if the subconscious has so much influence over my life, why can't I simply tell it what to do? That question takes us directly to the heart of this entire process. The subconscious does not operate the same way your logical, reasoning mind operates. It responds strongly to emotion, images, repetition, and experience. It learns through what you repeatedly think, feel, imagine, and experience. That is why simply repeating positive words while feeling completely disconnected from them may not create much change. You cannot always reach the deeper mind through words alone. You have to communicate in a language it naturally understands: emotion, imagination, sensation, and meaningful experience. And once you understand this, the whole process begins to look different. Think of your subconscious mind like rich, fertile soil. It is always ready to receive seeds. Those seeds are your repeated thoughts, your expectations, your beliefs, your emotional patterns, and the stories you constantly tell yourself. Soil does not stop to decide whether a seed is beautiful or ugly. It simply provides the conditions for whatever is planted to grow. Your subconscious works in a similar way. It does not automatically question every repeated idea and ask whether it is helping you. If you repeatedly tell yourself that you are not capable, that life never works out for you, that people always leave, or that success belongs to everyone except you, those thoughts can gradually become familiar patterns. Eventually, you may react from them automatically, without even realizing where the reaction came from. This is why people can sometimes repeat the same mistakes, enter the same kinds of situations, or experience the same emotional cycles for years. They are not necessarily choosing those patterns consciously. The pattern has simply become familiar. But here is the part you need to remember. Because it changes everything, what has been learned can also be relearned. What has been planted can be replaced. You are not permanently trapped inside yesterday's mental patterns. You can begin choosing different thoughts, different emotional responses, and different inner expectations. You can deliberately place new ideas into that fertile ground. You can nurture beliefs that support the life you genuinely want to build. This is one of the most powerful ideas to understand about the subconscious mind. Your past may have influenced the seeds already growing there, but it does not have to control every seed you plant from this moment forward. So how do you begin impressing a new desire onto your subconscious mind? Start with clarity. Get extremely specific about what you actually want. Do not simply say, "I want to be happy." That statement is too vague. Instead, ask yourself what happiness would look like in your real life. Where would you be? What would your days feel like? What would you wake up thinking about? Who would be around you? What kind of work would you be doing? What would your home feel like? What would change inside you? The more clearly you can
If you have
imagine
found
the
this message
experience,
today,
the easier it
take a
becomes to
moment
create
and
an
understand
emotional
that something
connection with
important
it.
has
Your
brought you
mind
here.
responds strongly to
This is not
meaningful
just a
pictures and
random
feelings.
moment passing through your
So give it
life.
something clear to
It is a
work
message
with.
arriving at a
Do
time
not
when your
create a
heart has
vague
been
wish.
carrying questions,
Create an inner
doubts,
experience.
and feelings that you have
Close
not
your
been
eyes
able
and
to fully
imagine a
explain.
moment that represents the life you
Deep
desire.
inside, in
See
the
it
quiet
clearly,
place where you
hear
keep
the
your
sounds
hopes and
around
fears,
you.
there is
Notice
something
the
you have been
environment.
waiting to understand.
Feel the emotions connected to
There
that
is a
moment.
question that has
Let the
continued to
scene become
return,
familiar.
no matter how much
And
you have
here is
tried to
something
ignore
many
it.
people overlook. You
A
do
question
not
about
need
this
to force
connection,
yourself to
about
feel
this
intense
person,
excitement.
and about what the
Sometimes
future may
quiet
still
certainty
hold.
is more powerful than emotional
Before you allow
intensity.
uncertainty
The
to
goal is
convince you
not to
that
become
everything is
desperate
over,
for the outcome.
hear this
The
clearly.
goal is to become familiar
There is
with the
still
feeling of
something
already
unfolding.
living in alignment with it.
There is still
This is
movement
where your
happening beyond
imagination
what your
becomes
eyes can
more
see.
than entertainment. It becomes a
I
way
know
of
you have been
rehearsing a
quiet.
new internal
I know
pattern.
you have been trying to accept
And
the
if you stay with
situation.
me, you'll see
You
why
may
the
have been
timing
telling
of this
yourself
practice
that you have already
can make
moved
the
forward,
experience even
that you have
more
made
powerful.
peace with the distance,
One of the most
and that
useful
you should
moments
stop
for this
looking
kind
back.
of inner practice
But
is what
somewhere
can be
inside,
described as
there
a
is still a
deeply
feeling
relaxed,
that remains,
almost sleepy state.
a thought
It
that
is the
appears
quiet
when you
space
least expect
when the
it,
constant noise
a
of your
memory
conscious
that
mind
returns
begins to
without
slow
warning.
down. You can
A
experience
question that
something
rises
similar
again
during
even
meditation,
after you believed you had.
in the peaceful moments before sleep, or sometimes just after waking in the morning. Your body is relaxed. Your thoughts are less demanding. You are no longer caught up in every problem, responsibility, and distraction of the day. In that calm state, bring your chosen desire into your awareness, but do not simply repeat a sentence mechanically. Enter the scene. Imagine that you are there. Experience it from within, rather than watching yourself from a distance. If you are imagining a new home, for example, do not merely see a picture of a house. Imagine yourself standing outside the front door. Feel the handle beneath your hand as you turn it. Notice the temperature of the room as you step inside. Hear your footsteps moving across the floor. Imagine the natural sounds surrounding you. Notice the light entering through the windows. Take in the feeling of comfort, safety, gratitude, or peace that this home represents to you. Make the imagined experience personal. Let it feel natural. The important point is not to strain or struggle to make something happen. Instead, allow your mind to become familiar with the experience. Repetition gives familiarity power, and what becomes familiar can begin to influence the way you think, act, notice opportunities, and respond to circumstances. So before you dismiss this as simple imagination, pause for a moment. Your inner world is constantly rehearsing something. The question, what are you rehearsing every day? Remember, your subconscious mind is continually receiving information from your environment, your conversations, your memories, your habits, and especially your repeated emotional experiences. If you spend every day imagining failure, rejection, embarrassment, or disaster, you are repeatedly practicing those emotional states. If you constantly expect something to go wrong, your attention naturally becomes more sensitive to evidence that confirms that expectation. But when you repeatedly focus on constructive possibilities, confidence, discipline, gratitude, and meaningful goals, you begin training your attention in another direction. This does not mean you should deny reality or pretend that problems do not exist. Positive thinking is not about ignoring difficult circumstances. It is about deciding which mental patterns deserve your repeated attention. You can acknowledge a problem without allowing it to become your entire identity. You can recognize fear without allowing fear to make every decision. You can experience disappointment without turning disappointment into a permanent belief about yourself. This is where conscious choice becomes powerful. You begin noticing the old pattern. You pause, then you choose a different response. At first, it may feel unnatural. That is completely normal. A new thought can feel uncomfortable simply because it is unfamiliar. But with repetition, the unfamiliar can become familiar. And once a new response becomes familiar, it requires less effort. This is how small inner changes can eventually produce visible changes in behavior. You begin speaking differently. You begin making different choices. You begin noticing opportunities you previously overlooked. You begin responding instead of reacting. And slowly, the life around you can start reflecting the person you are becoming. There is another important principle here. Emotion gives your imagination weight. You can repeat a sentence 100 times, but if you feel completely disconnected from it, the words may remain empty. Instead, choose an idea that you can genuinely begin to accept. If your goal is confidence, imagine one small situation where you naturally feel capable. If your goal is peace, imagine yourself responding calmly to something that once disturbed you. If your goal is success, imagine yourself completing meaningful work and feeling satisfied with your effort. Build the feeling gradually. You do not have to pretend that you already possess everything you want. You are training your mind to become comfortable with a new possibility. That distinction matters. Your subconscious learns from repetition, but it also learns from emotional meaning. So give your new mental picture meaning. Let it connect with something real inside you. Feel the relief, feel the gratitude, feel the quiet confidence, feel the sense of possibility. Then release the image rather than obsessing over it. You do not need to spend every waking moment thinking about your goal. In fact, constantly checking whether it has happened can create anxiety and reinforce the feeling that you are still waiting. Instead, practice the experience, then return to your life. Take practical action, make better decisions, follow opportunities, build skills, have difficult conversations when necessary. Your inner work should support your outer behavior, not replace it. The subconscious can influence your patterns, but your choices still matter. This is where imagination and action meet. And now we arrive at one of the most important parts of the process: consistency. One powerful visualization session may inspire you, but repeated practice is what builds familiarity. Think about how habits are formed. You did not learn every routine in your life in one afternoon. You repeated it again and again. Eventually, you stopped needing to think about every step. Your mind recognized the pattern automatically. The same principle can be used consciously. Choose one clear mental image, choose one emotional state that represents what you want. Practice returning to that experience regularly, especially when your mind is naturally calm. Do not constantly change the goal because you became impatient. Give the new pattern time to become familiar. And when negative thoughts appear, do not panic. A negative thought does not erase your progress. You can notice it without feeding it. You can say, "That is an old pattern," and redirect your attention. The goal is not to achieve a mind that never produces another negative thought. That is unrealistic. The goal is to become less controlled by those thoughts. You become the person who notices the thought instead of automatically obeying it. You become more intentional about what you repeatedly entertain. And this is where the real transformation begins. Not through forcing your mind into constant positivity, but through becoming more aware of what you are teaching it every day. So tonight, or whenever you have a quiet moment, try something simple. Put away the distractions. Sit comfortably or lie down. Allow your breathing to slow. Relax your shoulders. Let the day become quieter. Then choose one meaningful scene that represents the direction you want your life to move toward. Keep it simple. Do not create a complicated movie in your head. Choose one powerful moment. Maybe you are sitting in a place you once dreamed about. Maybe you are holding something you worked hard to achieve. Maybe you are having a peaceful conversation with someone important to you. Maybe you are looking at your life and realizing how far you have come. Whatever the scene represents, experience it from the inside. Feel the emotion without forcing it. Let the moment become familiar. Repeat it gently. Then allow yourself to rest. Do not immediately start analyzing whether you did it correctly. There is no need to fight with your mind. There is no need to become frustrated. You are simply giving your attention a new direction. And over time, those repeated inner experiences can influence the beliefs and behaviors you carry into your waking life. You may notice that you respond differently. You may become more confident in situations that once intimidated you. You may recognize possibilities you previously ignored. You may become more willing to take action because the idea of doing so no longer feels completely foreign. The deepest lesson is this: your subconscious is not some magical force that guarantees every desire simply because you imagine it. It is better understood as a powerful system of learned patterns that influences attention, emotion, habits, expectations, and behavior. When you begin working with that system intentionally, you can change the direction of your inner life. Your imagination gives you a picture. Your emotions give that picture meaning. Repetition gives it familiarity. And your daily actions give it reality. That combination is where meaningful change happens. So be careful about what you repeatedly tell yourself. Be careful about the stories you rehearse. Be careful about the emotions you constantly feed. Not because every passing thought controls your destiny, but because repeated patterns shape the person you become. You have more influence over your inner world than you may have realized. Start small. Choose one belief, choose one image, choose one emotional state, practice it consistently. Then take one real action that supports it. Tomorrow, repeat the process. Over time, the small things begin to compound. And one day you may look back and realize that the change did not begin when your circumstances suddenly transformed. It began much earlier, when you started changing the way you thought, felt, imagined, and responded. Your outer life may take time to catch up, but your inner direction can begin changing today. So ask yourself one final question before you move on with your day. If your subconscious mind is constantly learning from what you repeatedly give it, what are you teaching it right now? Feel the pride, the peace, and the deep satisfaction as you look around your beautiful home. Take in every detail. Notice the rooms, the light, the atmosphere, and the feeling of finally being where you wanted to be. This kind of imagination is not simply empty daydreaming. When you enter the scene with enough feeling and detail, it can become a meaningful inner experience. Your subconscious responds strongly to what you repeatedly imagine, emotionally experience, and accept as familiar. When you step fully into the feeling of your desire already being fulfilled, you are giving your mind a new pattern to work with. You are teaching yourself what that experience could feel like. Now, perhaps you are thinking, I have tried visualization before and nothing changed. If that is you, understand this. Consistency matters. Your present patterns were not created in one afternoon. They were built through months, years, and sometimes decades of repeated thoughts, assumptions, emotional reactions, and experiences. So it would be unrealistic to expect one short visualization session to completely replace deeply established patterns. You have to continue returning to your new assumption. You have to repeatedly practice the state you want to become familiar with, not only during a quiet moment before sleep, but also during ordinary parts of your day. This is where many people lose momentum. They visualize their desired life at night, feel inspired for a few minutes, and then wake up the next morning thinking exactly as they always have. But your mind is learning throughout the entire day. Your reactions matter. Your inner conversations matter. Your expectations matter. And if you want to create a different internal pattern, you have to practice it consistently. Your subconscious is constantly receiving information from what you think, feel, notice, repeat, and emotionally react to. That does not mean every passing thought determines your future. It means repeated patterns deserve your attention. If the evidence around you seems to contradict what you are working toward, you do not need to pretend that reality is different. You can acknowledge where you are while still choosing the direction you want to move in. Suppose financial stability and greater abundance are your goals. You do not need to look at your bank account and convince yourself that the number is something it is not. Instead, you can honestly say, this is where I am right now, but this is not where I have to remain. I am learning to think, act, and make decisions from a place of greater confidence and possibility. That is a healthier way to use imagination. You are not denying facts. You are changing the mental pattern you bring to those facts. And this leads us to another major part of the process, your self-concept. Your self-concept is the collection of beliefs and assumptions you carry about who you are. It is the mental picture you hold of yourself when nobody else is watching. In many cases, this internal picture has more influence on your behavior than a temporary goal does. You may consciously want success while unconsciously believing that success is not meant for someone like you. You may want a loving relationship while carrying a deep belief that you are difficult to love. You may want confidence while repeatedly identifying yourself as weak or incapable. When your goal and your self-concept move in opposite directions, inner conflict can appear. So if you truly want to change your patterns, you have to become willing to change the way you see yourself. This does not mean creating some fake personality or pretending to be someone you are not. It means questioning the limitations you have accepted about yourself. You are more than your past mistakes. You are more than your current circumstances. You are more than the opinions other people have formed about you. Your circumstances describe where you are today. They do not have to become the permanent definition of who you are. There are abilities, qualities, and possibilities within you that may not have been fully developed yet. Once you begin identifying more with your potential, than with your limitations. Your choices can begin to change. You may become more willing to speak up. You may stop accepting situations that constantly diminish you. You may start taking opportunities that once seemed too far beyond your reach. This is why self-concept matters so much. Your behavior often follows the identity you believe you have. If you see yourself as someone who always fails, you may unconsciously give up sooner. If you see yourself as someone who can learn, adapt, and recover, you are more likely to keep going when something becomes difficult. The shift begins internally, but it eventually shows up externally through your decisions. So ask yourself a powerful question: who would I be if I stopped defining myself by everything that happened before today? Sit with that question. Do not rush past it. Your answer may reveal more than you expect. And once you understand this next part, you will see why changing your self-image can become one of the most powerful forms of personal transformation. So how do you begin changing your self-concept? Start by imagining yourself as the person you are choosing to become. Do not simply look at an imaginary version of yourself from a distance. Step into the experience. Imagine how this version of you thinks. How do they carry themselves? How do they speak when something goes wrong? How do they respond when someone criticizes them? How do they handle opportunities? How do they treat themselves when they make a mistake? How do they walk into a room? Most importantly, how do they feel about themselves when there is nobody around to impress? These questions help turn a vague goal into a recognizable identity. But remember, you are not trying to manufacture a completely different person. You are bringing forward qualities that may already exist within you, but have been buried beneath fear, doubt, disappointment, or old conditioning. You are not becoming a stranger. You are becoming more intentional about which parts of yourself you strengthen. When you repeatedly imagine yourself responding with confidence, patience, discipline, courage, or calmness, you are mentally rehearsing those responses. With time and practice, they can become more familiar, and when something becomes familiar, it can become easier to express in real life. This is not instant magic, it is practice, it is repetition, it is identity training. The goal is to make the new way of thinking feel less foreign. Eventually, you may notice yourself behaving differently without having to force every decision. You pause before reacting. You speak with more confidence. You stop chasing approval. You make choices that match the person you say you want to become. That is when your inner work begins turning into visible behavior. Stay with this idea, because there is another simple tool that can make your self-concept much more conscious. That tool is the way you use the words I am. Those two words can carry enormous psychological weight because they introduce a statement about identity. Whatever you repeatedly place after I am can become part of the story you tell yourself about who you are. And many people use these statements without realizing their effect. I am always tired. I am terrible with money. I am unlucky. I am not good enough. I am just not confident. When these statements become repetitive, they can strengthen a negative identity. The problem is not that one sentence magically controls your life. The problem is that repeated identity statements can influence attention, expectations, emotional reactions, and behavior. So begin listening to your own language. Catch the moments when you define yourself through a temporary struggle. Instead of saying, I am a failure, you can say, I am learning. Instead of, I am terrible with money, say, I am learning to manage money with greater awareness. Instead of, I am not confident, say, I am developing confidence through practice. Notice the difference. One statement closes the door, the other leaves room for growth. But do not turn this into empty positive language that you do not believe at all. The words should feel believable enough to practice. Give them emotional meaning. If you say, I am becoming more confident, pause and feel what that would mean. Imagine standing calmly in a situation that once intimidated you. If you say, I am worthy of healthy love, imagine the peace of no longer needing to prove your value to someone. If you say, I am capable of building a better future, connect those words with the feeling of taking one real step forward. This is how language becomes connected to experience rather than remaining a collection of empty phrases. Now let's move into another powerful mental exercise: revision. Revision does not mean pretending history never happened or refusing to accept reality. It is a way of changing the meaning and emotional impact that certain memories continue to carry inside you. The past cannot be physically changed, but the way you remember it, interpret it, and respond to it can change over time. Your mind does not simply store events like a perfect video archive. Memories are connected to emotions, meanings, beliefs, and interpretations. So if an old event continues to make you feel ashamed, powerless, rejected, or afraid, you can work with the emotional meaning attached to that memory. Here is a simple way to practice. At the end of the day, take a few quiet minutes and replay the events that happened. Do not obsess over every detail. Look for moments that left you feeling disappointed, embarrassed, angry, or powerless. If something happened in a way you wish had been different, imagine the scene again. This time, allow yourself to experience a healthier version of the interaction. Perhaps you spoke calmly instead of becoming overwhelmed. Perhaps you communicated your needs clearly. Perhaps the other person listened with respect. Perhaps you walked away with dignity instead of feeling defeated. See the scene clearly in your imagination. Hear the words. Feel the emotional difference. Let your mind experience a more constructive ending. For example, imagine that you had a difficult conversation with a coworker. Instead of replaying the argument repeatedly, imagine the conversation happening with calm communication and mutual respect. Picture yourself listening carefully and responding confidently. Imagine hearing cooperation rather than hostility. Feel the relief of handling the situation with maturity. Again, this does not mean claiming the physical event never happened. It means choosing not to rehearse the painful version endlessly inside your mind. And this is where revision can become useful for personal growth. You are not rewriting facts so that you can escape reality. You are changing the internal rehearsal that keeps a painful emotional pattern alive. If you repeatedly replay an embarrassing moment, you may
If you have
continue
found this
strengthening
message
the
today,
feelings
take a
associated
moment
with that
and
moment.
understand
But if
that
you learn
something
to revisit
important
it
has brought
with
you here.
compassion, perspective,
This is not
and a
just a
healthier
random moment
imagined
passing
response,
through your life.
you may
It is a
gradually
message
reduce
arriving
its
at a
emotional
time when
grip.
your heart has been
Imagine
carrying
the younger
questions,
version of
doubts,
yourself
and
standing
feelings that you
inside
have
an
not
old,
been able to
difficult
fully
situation.
explain.
What would you say to that
Deep
person
inside,
now?
in the
What
quiet
would you
place where you
want them
keep
to
your hopes and
understand?
fears,
Perhaps you would
there
tell
is
them,
something you have
you
been
are not
waiting to
worthless because
understand.
someone rejected you.
There is a question
Perhaps
that
you
has
would say,
continued to
you are
return,
allowed to
no
make
matter how much
mistakes
you have
and still
tried to
respect
ignore it.
yourself. Perhaps you would
A question
remind them,
about this
one
connection,
difficult moment
about this
does
person,
not
and
define your
about what the
entire
future
life.
may still hold.
Let that new perspective
Before you
become
allow
part of the
uncertainty to
memory.
convince you that
You are
everything is
giving
over,
yourself another way
hear
to
this
understand
clearly.
what happened.
There is
And this
still
matters
something
because the story
unfolding.
you carry about your
There is
past
still movement
often
happening beyond
influences
what
the
your eyes
identity
can
you
see.
bring into your future. If your
I know
story
you have
is,
been quiet.
I always fail,
I know you have been
you may
trying to
approach
accept
new
the
opportunities
situation.
with fear.
You may
If
have
your
been telling
story
yourself
becomes,
that you have
I
already
have
moved
struggled
forward,
before, but I have
that you
also
have made peace with
survived,
the
learned,
distance,
and grown,
and that you should
your
stop looking
behavior
back.
can begin to change.
But somewhere
The facts
inside,
of your
there is
past
still a feeling that
remain
remains.
facts.
A thought
But the
that
meaning you
appears when you
give
least
those
expect
facts
it.
can
A
evolve.
memory
And
that returns
sometimes
without
that
warning.
change in meaning
A
is
question
exactly
that
what
rises
allows you
again,
to stop
even after you
carrying
believed you had.
yesterday into every new situation. So begin paying attention to the inner conversations that happen when nobody else can hear you. Notice how quickly you criticize yourself. Notice the assumptions you make. Notice the predictions you automatically create. This will go wrong. They will reject me. I am not capable. People like me never succeed. These statements can feel like facts simply because you have repeated them for so long. But familiarity is not proof. A thought can be familiar and still be inaccurate. This is one of the most important realizations you can make. You do not have to believe every thought that appears in your mind. You can question it, you can replace it, you can choose a more balanced interpretation. You can create a new internal conversation and repeat it until it becomes more natural. The goal is not to force yourself into unrealistic optimism. The goal is to develop a mind that is flexible enough to recognize possibilities rather than automatically expecting defeat. If you want greater confidence, practice seeing yourself handling challenges. If you want healthier relationships, Practice seeing yourself communicating clearly and respecting your boundaries. If you want financial improvement, practice seeing yourself making thoughtful decisions, learning useful skills, and becoming more disciplined. Then bring those imagined qualities into your real behavior. This is the part people sometimes skip. They want the inner transformation without the practical action. But your new identity becomes stronger when your actions support it. Every time you act in alignment with the person you are becoming, you give your mind another piece of evidence. You show yourself, this is who I am becoming. Small actions count. One conversation, one decision, one boundary, 1 hour of focused work, one healthier response. These moments accumulate. And finally, remember that changing your subconscious patterns is not about controlling every thought or creating a perfect mental life. You will still have difficult days. You will still experience doubt. You will still remember painful things. You will still have moments when the old pattern returns. That does not mean you have failed. It means you are human. The important thing is what you repeatedly return to. When you notice the old story, come back to the new one. When you catch yourself defining who you are by an old mistake, remind yourself that you are still growing. When you feel discouraged by your circumstances, acknowledge them honestly, while remembering that your present situation is not the complete story of your future. Practice the image of who you are becoming. Practice the feeling of responding differently. Practice language that supports growth. Review your day. Revise the moments that need a healthier emotional ending. Then take real-world action. Do this consistently, not desperately, not obsessively, just consistently. Because the deepest changes rarely announce themselves in one dramatic moment. They often begin quietly, almost invisibly, through repeated choices. One thought becomes a pattern. One pattern becomes a habit. One habit becomes behavior. And behavior, repeated long enough, can reshape the direction of a life. So before you move on, ask yourself this: what version of yourself have you been rehearsing every day? And more importantly, what version of yourself are you ready to rehearse from now on? The answer may be the beginning of a completely different chapter.